I'm excited to be here today. This is Laura Edell, aka Annielytics. I am here on the Annielytics podcast interviewing one of the more fascinating from a science perspective in terms of my sort of girl geek and girl crushness with Miss Dawn. So Dawn, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Dawn James. I am your coworker at Microsoft.
Yes.
I am the director of U.S. Sustainability and Environmental Services at Microsoft. My background, I've been at Microsoft for about 2 years, and I come from the energy sector. And I originally started at Microsoft as the energy lead for the Americas, and then I've transitioned to the position as director of sustainability.
You know, I did not know all that. I thought you were brand new coming in from the outside. So see, we learn new stuff every day.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, you know, you and I were talking recently, and I was really fascinated by your journey of how you got here and your exploratory, if you will, nature. Can you walk us through your career journey, what this has looked like, and really, you know, focus on those really cool stories of exploration that you've gone through?
Sure. Yeah, my career is different than a lot of people's, and I've made some pivots in my career into different industries. And you know, one of the things that I like to kind of say up front when I talk about my career is really talk about the kind of person that I am, right? And I've always been very curious as a child and adventurous, very much a risk taker. And I love to learn new things. I'm not one of these people that are motivated by money. It's taken me time to learn that. I'm not motivated by money. I'm not motivated by power and, you know, all of these things. What motivates me are experiences.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I've been like that from a very, very young age. So a lot of the pivots in my career have come from seeking new experiences and the desire to learn something new. So I started out as a geoscientist. I've been in the natural resources industries for 25 years now.
Tell us what that is.
So I started out as a geoscientist working in geotechnical engineering and environmental consulting. So what that is it's within the buildings and infrastructure industry.
Mm-hmm.
And every building that you sit in, every house, every road, especially in the United States, was built based on a set of engineering parameters that has to go through a number of policies, right? The construction of those things have policies attached to them, and there's rules and laws. And so one of those policies comes down to having a geologist of record for many engineering projects in the building infrastructure. So there's a whole industry around geology, technical engineering, right? So I worked when I first got out of college in construction, essentially. Right.
Love it. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. And I was in the field. We did drilling. I canvassed, I mapped, I worked, you know, side by side with construction contractors. I had, you know, belt, and I was out in, you know, those with the big scrapers and all that stuff. Little old me, right when I got out of college, I was out there with all the big boys out there.
Did you have a hard hat on?
I sure did. Yeah, of course. I had a hard hat and my hammer and my big steel-toed boots and all that good stuff.
Amazing.
And I used to go down hole. You know, people actually, when I told people this in my career later, I actually got people that didn't even believe me that I used to do this kind of stuff.
I have to say, I thought the same thing too when I first heard it, but then your story is too fascinating to not believe. So keep going.
Yeah, so I that's how I started, was in geotechnical engineering. And then I pivoted into government work, where I worked in the water resources division for the USGS. So the big pivot in that, when I did my master's, I worked in fluvial sedimentology. And so that was what my thesis was on. I did my thesis work in New Zealand, and it was real difficult.
What is fluvial? I can't even say it.
Fluvial is the study of surface water, like lakes and rivers. So my thesis work was on a river system that fed into a large bay in New Zealand. Zealand. So I was looking at the change in sediments within that river system from the source area down through the terrace deposits into the ocean. And I was describing that entire system. Okay. And so while I was doing my graduate work, I started my graduate work while I was still working. So I was working in geotechnical engineering. I was taking classes at night. And like I said, I'm very much looking for that next experience, next learning, right? So during that time, I just came up with this idea. I won't go into the whole reason why I came up with the idea, but I started a program at Catalina Island through the Catalina Island Conservancy.
I love Catalina.
Yeah, me too. I'm from Los Angeles, so I went to I went to camp at Catalina Island.
I lived in Lomita, so I
was a kid.
Oh my gosh! So see,
yes. So I went to Catalina Island camp as a kid.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm. So I knew all about the Conservancy from going to camp there. And so I called them up one day. I had this kind of harebrained scheme and I said, I'm a graduate student. I work in geotechnical engineering. Can I run a geology program through your Conservancy? And they said, well, you need to be certified as a naturalist, come in and take our training program. And then yes, right. So I designed a whole geology program that talked about, you know, the how the island was formed. And I did photomicrographs of all the sedimentology and the really unique geology within, you know, the Channel Islands. Anyways, I came with this whole program. I did it just out of my own brain, right? And on the first hike was the chief geoscientist for the USGS for all of California. Nice. When I finished the hike, he offered me a job on the spot.
You see how amazing that is, that your networks coincided with like this experience and you took advantage of it. I think that's a really big crux of this podcast is that we want to show people that are early in career that are ranging from all over the spectrum, that you don't have to start in tech to end in tech. I started in quantum physics and ended in tech. Dawn started in geology and is still kind of doing it, but in tech. And so Dawn, I want to ask you, you know, we talked a little bit about your upbringing and, you know, the advice you would give yourself if you could go back in time. To rewind the journey for me of just what was your thought process coming into being this woman, going into this field? I mean, you're wearing hard hats. I mean, I'd imagine it's largely dominated by a male industry. I could be wrong. Tell me, what advice would you give yourself in this, you know, to the young Dawn to help her succeed earlier?
Yeah, that's a hard question because, you know, if you knew then what you know now, would you have done it? Would you do it again? Good point. Right. And I really had no idea at that time in my life what the journey was that I was embarking on. I really did not know. I had no idea of the possibilities, you know, and the thing that has, you know, I find that at this stage in my career that, where I started is where I'm back again, right? So when I brought up who I was as a child, I had to really understand that again, right? Because that is what makes me happy, right?
Yeah.
And so as an adult, I had to really really get in
love
touch.
Your inner child.
I had to get in touch with who I was, right? And who I really wanted to grow up to be, and not to grow up to be that person, but to be it.
Be it. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah. Not that I will be this and I'm going to do this, but I am doing this. I am doing this, right? This is who I am. So then you have to discover who you are.
Give me an adjective. When you say I am, what are you? Give me a word.
I am what did I tell my daughter? I am a alternative intellectual is what I like to call myself.
That is an amazing explanation. Thank goodness you didn't say something like cliche, because I would have had to try to fake an eye, my eye happening.
Like what? Like a what?
I would have to fake my eye roll from happening. Like, oh yeah, your cliche is great. But you gave me an authentic answer, which is brilliant. Every time someone catches me off guard, I write these things down in a journal. One day I'm going to publish them on. You got me on that one. So is that the advice you would give yourself, is really to love that inner child? I mean, to just be who you are back then that you love now?
Yeah, you know, because I think that that's one of the things, you know, there's a time in my life where, you know, and I think everybody kind of goes through this, you know, I'm watching it with my children. I'm watching, you know, it's like I literally gave birth to myself twice, right, with these children. And so, you know, I watch my daughter and I see who I was. Right.
Oh,
And as a kid, I was all in the present. I was so in the present and so into just finding my joy in every solitary. And people thought I was nuts. People thought I was flighty and that I was kind of an airhead. And I can see it from the outside. I can see, because my daughter is all about experience. She's all about that curiosity. You know, she has to go outside and play with the bugs and the trees and the, you know, and like when she's playing, she just comes up with this whole,
like, exactly. It's
and I'm
amazing.
like, and that's how I used to be, right?
When did we lose that?
Well, so I remember when I lost it.
Oh, you do?
I have a very, very clear memory of my childhood, which is part of the reason why I'm able to go back and say, this is who I was. And this is, you know, I remember it was middle school, right? Okay. When there was all of this pressure to be something who you're not. You have all this, you're supposed to be this, your hair is supposed to be like this, you're this person, you have all these kind of cultural things.
Absolutely.
You know, and then you have to do well in school. And I mean, I see myself doing it with my daughter. I'm afraid for her, right? Because she's so free that, well, you got to learn how to read. You know, like,
that's how I feel about my son. I feel like, I mean, I was a mathlete. I was that nerd. So for me, that was the way I got my joy.
Yeah.
For him, I was just looking at his grades and I'm like, how am I a data scientist and my kid is failing at math? Which is
I see it though. You know, it's not that she's not intelligent in any way, shape or form. And she does read.
It's a different type of intelligence.
It's a different type of intelligence. And I was the same way. You know, school actually came very, very easy to me, you know, up until a certain point, right? Obviously, like a lot of people, you know, but in the elementary school, I didn't really have to try. Middle school, that kind of stuff. So once I learned, but I didn't care.
Yeah.
Right. I just didn't care. You know,
you don't realize the value of that. You're just, it's easy.
Well, it was because of the way I was taught, you know, and that's a whole nother discussion about the educational system and that sort of thing.
So broken.
I'm an outside learner. I'm a tactile learner, you know, I need to, and even now my memory, it's like a sieve, right? If I don't tactily type out while people are talking, I don't really remember.
100%. No, and that's part of my dyslexia, and the tools that I've used and learned over time is to do exactly that. But teachers back then, they didn't put me in a box. They were like, oh, you tested as a genius, but you're dyslexic. So we're going to put you in remedial classes where it was like, and my mom luckily was that strong single woman to be like, you're not doing that to my kid. It was like a terms of endearment moment.
Yes.
Do you do that same passionate mama bird with your daughter if you ever see that happening? Oh, okay.
Oh, are you kidding me?
Love it.
Yeah, I'm not the one. I'm not the one.
Don't mess with you.
No.
So if you had to think about your next, 5 years going forward, whether it's going to be helping to create this sustainable movement that we are on, what does that 5 year look like for you?
Well, so I am very, very much focused on the present and where we are today and the challenges that we're focused on today. I am doing the work right now, the exact thing that I should be doing.
Yeah, you are.
I feel very much that I'm in the place and time that I'm supposed to be in right now. Yeah. My being here is extremely intentional. A lot of the moves in my career over the last 15 years have been extremely intentional. I'm here on purpose.
Okay.
Right. And so the objectives that I'm working on now in line with Microsoft's objectives towards mitigating, the effects of climate change disruption due to anthropogenic effects, that is has been my want and desire for a very, very long time. Yeah. And even when I go back to, my goals in creating that program at Catalina Island Conservancy, that is very similar. The point of that hike was not just to teach people about geology. It was all about how our civilization fits. And how we fit
into
right
the ecosystem,
right, because we live on the planet too, right? And so in some ways I was not opposed, but I pushed against the Conservancy because their whole agenda was really to return that piece of land to what it was before before human intervention.
Yeah.
And so, you know, a lot of the work that I've done. No, because we're here and it's a tourist island.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
There's going to be people.
So, you know, I mean, the reason why they exist is because tourists are there and because of the Wrigley Foundation, who owns the island, right? And granted that land to the Conservancy. So everything goes back to, you know, when we're looking at mitigating these effects of climate change that are due to, you know, humans, it comes back to our ability to live in balance.
I love that.
With our environment. And I believe that there is a way to do that with engineering.
No, I 100% agree. This is why I volunteered my time to your group to help come up with the modeling around to help scale this, because it's a passion of mine as well.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that you're the first person I've actually heard explain it with humans coexisting in this ecosystem, as opposed to saying we need to fix it's all these things. And that's not the reality. Humans are going to be butted up against nature hopefully for a long time from now. Nature will self-correct itself over time. And so there are things that we need to do as humans to then meet them into that ecosystem. And I love that that's your focus.
Yeah.
Tell me, you know, you're a very confident woman, my perception of meeting you. And granted, I don't know you very well, but I know you a little bit and you seem very confident.
Thank you.
Were you always this confident?
I've always been very headstrong. You know, I definitely hold a lot of my relationships that I've had for a very long time. I'm still best friends with my best friend from elementary school that been friends since we were 5 years old. And I asked her at one point in time, as one of my exercises in rediscovering myself, you know, what was I like? You know, how did you perceive?
Oh, great question.
You know, as a child. And she gave me a great answer.
What was it?
And it really was, well, she said that you were always so fearless. You know, and I never thought of myself really as fearless. I'm afraid of all kinds of stuff. I'm afraid of the dark, you know, like all the lights are always on in my house, right? So, you know,
same with me. If you saw right now, my house is lit up like a Christmas tree.
I know, my kids are always laughing at why we always got to have the lights on, because there's no dark corners in this house, right? So, you know, it's not that I have no fear, right? It's just that I've always just been very much in the present, right? Like, and I've been very, very headstrong about being happy and being, you know, joyful and
demanding that happiness.
I demand that happiness, right? You know, and so like,
don't put it on the back burner. Like
I've always been like that, you know, and I want to be happy now. I don't want to be happy tomorrow, right? I want to be happy now. And when tomorrow comes, I'll be happy then, right? So that really has been a big driver. That has been a big motivator for where I went to college and why I went to college there, why I took the jobs that I took, and, you know, all of those things. It's not necessarily that I'm fearless. It's just that I'm fearless in the pursuit of
happiness. That's brilliant. I don't think anybody, well, first of all, nobody on this podcast has ever talked about happiness. And so kudos to you. You've had 2 now firsts. Yay, look at you and your creative talk track. But mostly I'm just thinking about myself and I'm like, yeah, happiness is one of these things in the back of my head that I'm naturally joyful. I have a lot going on in my life right now, but I try to maintain at the end of the day, I'm here, I am healthy, I'm alive, I'm a mother, and remind myself that breathing and living is in and of itself a great thing. What do you do on the days when it's hard though? Like, how do you remind yourself to be happy?
Yeah. No. So, you know, it's, you know, as human beings, we have, you know, psychological triggers for these type of things. Right. Mm-hmm. So, again, that's getting to know myself. Mm-hmm. Right. I've gone through a lot of challenges, you know, it's not easy. You know, I don't exist as a seemingly confident, fearless woman in front of you by mistake or by, you know, because I also am not here alone. Right. There are many extraordinary people that are, that I'm a product of.
That like mentored you and that helped you grow, or you know, just your parents and your family and your friends?
All of the above. Okay. I have a phenomenal mother, I have a really, really interesting
that's
father.
So sweet. I love that.
I have amazing grandparents. My children are, like I said, I gave birth to myself, so they're pretty amazing too. And I've had fantastic mentors. I've had people in my life, even if it's been for short periods of time, like, the chief geoscientist of the USGS at that time, who see me.
They
right?
see you. They see you for
me.
you.
They see me, right? And they've helped me, right? When I've asked for it, and
so
then
that's the key. That's the key. So you asked for it. I think that's
like I mentioned, I'm very intentional.
Yeah, exactly.
About what it is that I want and how, and I'm trying not to be rude about it or that kind of thing. But,
your intent.
You never know unless you ask. You never know. You never know.
What's the worst that can happen? They can say no.
And I'm very big on networking, and relationship building, and also because that kind of thing, it also comes naturally to me, right? Like I said, I'm still friends with my best friend from elementary school. I'm still friends with a lot of my friends from over a long period of time. I make friends easily. Yeah. And so, that is something that I have an affinity for. So I leverage those skill sets.
What month were you born in? I just have to know what month were you born.
Oh, well, I'm a Libra. I am
I knew it.
Libra.
I am too. So I should have said it up front because I knew as soon as you said you make friends easily because you're so charming. I'm like, she's a Libra. She's a Libra. That's amazing. So I am too. So my birthday is at the beginning of the month. When's your birthday? Mine's on the 4th. When's yours?
October 8th. Okay.
My mom said she kept me in because she wanted to be able to say 10-4, good buddy. And I was always like,
I love it. I love it.
I was born at like 12:05 and I imagine her like, no doctor, no doctor.
I love it. I love it. Well, my thing, I'm oct and 8. So I have that
double. Oh, even better.
Yeah.
So we're coming to round out this session, and Donna, I could just talk to you forever. I find you from everything from the rocks, because I too love rocks. My son and I collect rocks. We are nerds that way still. To what you're doing with sustainability and how it means so much to me as well. I just want to ask you one final question, and I ask everyone this because I would like to have this virtual dinner party, and everybody always surprises me with their answers. So, not to put any pressure on you, but if you had to invite 2 people to a dinner party, whether alive or dead, and whether fictional or fictitious or real, who would they be and why?
So, again, I'm motivated. Same thing that motivates me, right, is experience, right? Experiences, and then also connections. A dinner party, I have to look at the constraints, right? We're both scientists, right?
Yes,
so I got to look at the constraints, right? to before, right?
So it's a dinner. My happiness is now and my networking. What do I need to minimize?
See, right? So it's a dinner party. So we're talking 2-3 hours, maybe 4 the maximum. So to maximize that, what I have to do is I'd have to think about who would make a minute seem like an hour.
So talking to them would actually be interesting.
Yeah. Right. Well, no, the time changes, right? So time is relative. Time is relative, right? That's why we say, the mile a minute and this, right? So it just depends on your perception. It depends on what you think about it, right? And so there's certain people and certain experiences that the time would be endless, right? So if I invited someone that I had no connection with, I had no idea, then it'd be nerve wracking, and we don't necessarily know each other, and
drag,
or even if it was someone like really, really interesting, they would know me. So why would they say,
No, it's true. It's like when I met Ja Rule in the airport first class lounge, and I was like, oh, hi, Ja Rule. And then I was like, I have nothing else to say.
I know. I've met plenty of celebrities too, and I'm like, I really like your work. What are you going to say, right?
Exactly.
So definitely it's the experience, and it's also the people that it would be a conversation that it would last a lifetime.
So maybe your best friend then, would that be one of them?
It would be my grandmother that passed. When I say I gave birth to myself, it's like she gave birth to me, right? Like, so she knew me She saw me.
She saw you.
She saw me
Oh,
when I was,
cry.
I know, I'm going to cry too.
No,
She
I know
saw
my
me
grandma's very old right now. So
when I was a kid, when I was very young. She knew me before I was born. She knew me through my mother.
Yeah, absolutely.
She's the one who introduced my mother and father. And so she knew me, she knows me. She passed when I was in high school from Lou Gehrig's disease. And she never learned what I became.
Yeah, she didn't know. She doesn't see how you're a mom. She doesn't see that what you've done in your career. I feel the exact same way about my mom dying.
To have a conversation with my grandmother about my children.
Just to let her know, here's your great-grandchildren or your grandchildren.
Yeah. Nothing in the world would replace that. Nothing. That experience, to be able to have that conversation with my grandmother.
That's really beautiful. Like I said, my grandmother's also getting up there, and I think about the day when she goes, and that's going to destroy me, because when she goes, I have 2 family members left by blood, and it is 3. Don't want to discount my third. But it's so scary to me because she's the glue. When my mom died, it's like it all fell apart in my family. And so was your grandma a lot of the glue in your family, or does your family just very close?
Not necessarily. The matriarch on that side of the family, she was called Mama Hill. My grandmother was not the matriarch of the family. Okay. We just had a very special relationship.
So you had that bond. Yeah, my grandmother and I do too. They always said I was the 5th child. So my uncle, who's the 4th child, actually gets jealous sometimes of me because I got all that grandma attention.
Yeah.
But it's also, she took me to New York to experience things. She wanted me to understand all this other world that existed, because my mom and I were very poor. So she would give me experiences that I could otherwise not have. And so it's very special that you also have a connection with your grandmother. That touches me.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. So who's your other one?
So the other one would be, so I had a fleeting best friend when I was a child.
Okay.
And, I've had many best friends, but this one, I don't know, the memory sticks out in my head. We had, you meet soulmates, right? And she was a friendship soulmate.
And in that point in time, she was there in your life. You had
and it was short.
It was short.
It was very short, but it leaves a
memory,
a residence.
It does.
In my spirit.
Yeah, and that's the mindfulness of a relationship, though. I was raised Zen Buddhist, so we are all about relationships you can't hold on to. These are things that you need to set free and not have attachment to. And so whether or not they're 2 days or whether or not they're lifetime, they can have the same impact on you as a person.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I definitely look at relationships by the way that they've not just changed me, but this like non-tangible kind of precedence in my life. So this one best friend that I knew for 2 weeks that I never saw again in my entire life, I would absolutely, it would make 2 hours turn into 20 years.
No time at all. Oh, that's brilliant, Dawn. I love you so much for coming on this show and sharing your very personal stories about your grandmother, Absolutely. About your best friend, about being a Libra. Now we have that in common. I love Libras. They know that about me.
I love Libras too.
I am so biased.
Look, we would be talking all day. Libras, you can't shut us up. We'd just be talking and we'd be best friends and talking all day. I know how it goes.
See, I can point out on our team all the Libras. Those are the ones I went after. So
exactly.
Well, Dawn, thank you so much. It's been a joy. I've really enjoyed having you on the Annielytics podcast, and I hope to have you back again soon.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Have a great day.
Okay, you too.